and tell me exactly where he was, so I could pay my respect. Well, they must have my plan. Come back. Later, got another. Was this the Magi? Another. They came to me in search of a king. They came to me in search of a king. I am king. I am the king, and the world worships me. Who was this child invading my world? Vile creature. You see, this Jesus they talked about was going to be a threat to me as king. Prophecy said that the king of the Jews would come and reign over his people. That was a threat to my throne, and I needed to deal with that threat. So, I ordered that every boy child in Bethlehem, 2 years old and younger, was to be killed. Oh, you probably think that sounds a bit callous. Well, I needed to protect myself, and Jesus was a threat to me living my life the way I wanted to live it. Obviously, I had to dispose of Jesus so that he would not interfere with my pursuit of riches, money, and power. You know, there may be some of you out there just like me. You are afraid to commit to Jesus because of what it will cost you. Well, I am with you.
So that was Herod, a worldly king and nothing more. Our God commands us, do not be afraid. I felt no fear from Herod. And so how does the birth of Jesus affect me? It made me thoroughly committed. Committed is what God requires of those who follow him. So how committed are you to following our newborn king?
So why should we be informed of the birth of a king? God works in ways we cannot understand. That night still fills me with wonder at the plans God has for his people. I encourage you all to let your heart go and start to wonder at the gift of a baby born into this world as a king who would later on save us all from the slavery of this sinful world.
Just look at what God has done through the gift of his Son. Our God wants to use you for his purposes too. Are you willing to give up yourself to commit to a life serving God? Or will you serve the world? You cannot serve two kings.
Good morning. Morning. welcome again to Troy Methodist Church. I hope you had a meaningful Thanksgiving. My name's Andy. I did. A couple of them. 1 meal a day days. We're into that season, aren't we? Well, I'm glad that you've joined us today here in person, and welcome to those of you gathering online too. We're so glad that you've joined us. A special welcome to those of you who are newer or visiting, maybe a special guest today. We're really glad that you're here. You've already heard the heart of our message today. Really, it's the message for the next several weeks. You cannot serve two kings. And this Advent, for those of you unfamiliar with the word, is a time of year the church sets aside to prepare our hearts for the coming of our Savior, King Jesus. And we really need to set this time aside each year because the truth is, the default cultural Christmas experience of our day and age is really set up, it's rigged. It is set up to worship a different king. This king isn't as easily dismissed as the over-the-top rendition of King Herod that you just experienced. He's easy to say no to, isn't he? No, this king is maybe a little more deceptive. When the Magi were traveling from afar in search of the newborn king, it only made sense in their culture to find a newborn king in a palace. And since Herod's palace was the only one in the area, the culture of their day initially led them there. It led them to the wrong king. And I'm trying to say that the culture of our day will, by default, lead us to the wrong king too. Now, that king goes by a few different names. You may know him as consumerism, overconsumption, or the never-ceasing pursuit of more. You're probably able to see how this king captures the minds and the hearts of many this time of year. What's Black Friday about if it's not about consumerism, overconsumption, and the never-ceasing pursuit of more? And so much of our cultural Christmas experience really can fit into those categories. Certainly, the gift buying for people who already have everything they need and more. But think about the various false promises that this king makes. More and better stuff is the way to a new, better, and happier self. Love, then, is best expressed by spending more on material possessions. Love becomes a commodity that can be purchased and wrapped up. In some cases, that thing that we ask for or want or hope that we'll receive under the Christmas tree feeds deeper desires that this king promises, desires for greater meaning or significance, sometimes pleasure or an escape from reality. And if you string enough of those Christmases together, which I can see some of you have strung quite a few Christmases together, it adds up. You quickly realize that it's a never-ending cycle. Because eventually, the luster, every year, the luster of the gift wears off. Sometimes it's like that afternoon. Sometimes it's the next day. Sometimes it takes into January. But eventually, the luster of those gifts, they wear off. And we realize it didn't quite deliver on the promises that we expected. And we find ourselves dissatisfied. But because we are culturally formed to believe this king of consumerism, what do? How do we solve our disappointment that feeling didn't last? Well, we just replace it with something else new and shiny, because you know what? There's always next Christmas to look forward to. And if you're skeptical of what I'm saying, maybe you're even thinking to yourself, that's maybe a little over the top. I'm not caught up in all that stuff. Just pay attention to the marketing all around you. The king of consumerism, overconsumption, and more is always beckoning. It's always calling us and offering promises that he cannot deliver on. And what do we end up with? Well, in the end, we end up with more. We do. Yes, we end up with more busyness, more dissatisfaction, more struggle, more debt, more disillusionment, envy, and certainly more stuff than we can use or need. But the good news is this, that the true King Jesus, was born to deliver us from the grips of all lesser kings. There really is a better, richer, and more fulfilling way to celebrate Christmas. That's why this December we invite you to join together to defy the king of consumerism. We invite you to join together to resist the king of overconsumption. You are invited into the Advent conspiracy, where together we will conspire against the king of more. But because this king of consumerism, overconsumption, and more, presses in from every angle and every side, these can't just be words that we say. We need to be intentional. And so this is our plan for doing just that. First, in this Advent conspiracy, we are inviting you to worship fully. More specifically, we're inviting you to worship Jesus fully. If you were here last week, you may remember me saying we were in a series about making change, a series about the Bible and its kind of financial teachings. You may remember me saying that you can learn a lot about a person and a person's values by following the money trail, kind of following where the spending leads. Worship, in essence, is ascribing worth to something or someone. So when you truly worship, you are revealing the value that you ultimately place on someone or something. By definition, then, you can't merely worship with your lips. Like, everything else has to follow. You have to worship with your time, your energy, your money, everything. That's worship. If you say you worship King Jesus, but you spend the vast majority of your time pursuing, an energy, in service of the king of consumption and consumerism and more, then really, who do you really serve? Your invitation is to do just what the Magi did, to turn away from the cultural king to fully worship Jesus with your time, your money, and your energy. And when you do so, when you truly desire Jesus above everything else, then I believe that you'll find what Jesus offers. He promises love and joy and peace and hope. Here are some ways that you can begin to arrange your Advent, the next 4 weeks leading up to Christmas Eve, around worshiping Him fully. First, make corporate worship with your church a priority. If you have kids at home, talk with them regularly about what Christmas is really about, the real meaning of Christmas, and do your best to downplay or counter the cultural Christmas experience. Plan worship and service activities that would emphasize giving gifts to Jesus this Christmas, since it's His birthday, more so than buying gifts for others or for yourselves as if it's your birthday. Again, if you have kids living at home, help them know and understand the distinction between the two. When you're planning to watch your favorite Christmas movies and you've just watched, Christmas Vacation and Die Hard and, you're having a great time, make it a part of your plan to watch a Christmas movie or two that center on Christ. One of the best ones is The Nativity. Fantastic movie. I'm not just suggesting that you simply add more things to your to-do list this December. Most of you are already way too busy. What I'm suggesting is that you replace some of the other stuff with these types of worshiping Jesus activities. And the number 2 thing in our Advent conspiracy plan is a great place to gain back some of that time and money. So number 2 is to spend less. I hope I'm not too late in sharing the importance of this piece of our Advent conspiracy. I'm looking out there. I see a lot of guys. If you're a guy, chances are I'm pretty safe. You haven't even thought about shopping yet. But some of you gals, you're already done with your shopping list. This is an important piece of conspiring against the king of consumerism, overconsumption, and more. I hope you can see that direct connection here. Choosing to spend less defies that king. Not only that, but it can make room in your life for the one true king. How could this look for you or for your family? Spending less could mean a planned decision to make Christmas more about time together than about presents under the tree. Spending less could mean less entertainment and more relationship. Spending less could mean fewer purchases, but more thoughtful ones. Spending less doesn't mean spending nothing, but it does mean being more intentional about that spending. And hopefully, a commitment to spend less could also mean that you gain back some of the time in just kind of aimless shopping and aimless spending to focus on what really matters. So the third part of our Advent conspiracy plan is to give more. Wait, Pastor Andy, didn't you just say we're supposed to spend less? Well, yes. If you spend less, you have the capacity to give more. But the real distinction here is the direction of the giving. It changes. The intention here is to give more to Jesus. It is his birthday, right? And the next logical question is to ask, well, what does Jesus want for his birthday? The Magi gave extravagant gifts. You're invited to give extravagant gifts too, but what does Jesus want? Well, believe it or not, Jesus has a list. And Jesus' list includes the fortunate, the lost, the poor, the sick, the hungry, the imprisoned, the overlooked. Jesus said that when we meet their needs, it's like we're doing it for him. If you're not sure where I get that from, you can read about it in Matthew chapter 25. And although I know you have many opportunities to give more gifts that would truly bless Jesus, I want to highlight just a couple here at Troy Methodist Church. You've already heard about the angel tree. Folks, that's a great way to simply give a gift that would bless others who have real needs. Second, through our December offering. Bonnie mentioned it. I'll reiterate. We're giving away this December 16% of everything in the regular offering plate. And we'll split it equally between 4 different worthy ministries. And we're going to highlight one each week during Advent. But just recently, a Christmas letter went out to everybody, and it highlighted that for you. So if you haven't checked the mail in a few days, check it. You may have it in there. But this week, we're highlighting our local to Troy food pantry called Ministries Unlimited. It actually serves the Triad School District area. And there are several ways to bless others and give more to the overlooked through them, but we will be specifically supporting their future building fund. In their current location, if you know where Ministries Unlimited is, just kind of south of our building here, a couple of blocks on Collinsville Road, heading heading out of town before you get to the south end of the park. But it's kind of in a location that isn't easily accessed by people without transportation. It isn't situated closest to the primary clientele of the food pantry. And to resolve that, the Ministries Unlimited Board approved a purchase of land that is just back here up close to Pete's Market, just north of the post office. And I'm actually on the board for Ministries Unlimited. I think this is a great move to eventually position the ministry in a location that's more accessible to those without transportation. Our gift to them will be part of their fledgling building fund, which they're just starting now. Your offerings also to our church this December will help to sustain our ongoing ministry to people throughout our region. So thank you in advance. But this Advent, look for ways to give more to those that Jesus had particular concern for: the least, the last, and the lost. And that leads to our fourth and final part of the Advent conspiracy: to love all. You know, one of the greatest feelings of Christmas, I think it's what we're all kind of drawn to Christmas for, is that love that we get to share between friends and family. Many of the more secular carols that we sing, or the cards that we give, really reflect on that nostalgic feeling of home and love that we experience with family. And I want you to hear me on this. I truly hope that you have that you get to experience that over the holiday season. But I also know that there are some of us where we don't have that, or we've lost that, and that's a deep source of grief during this time of year. We'll actually talk about that in a couple of Sundays from now. But I truly hope that you will get to experience the love of family and experience that feeling of home. But our commitment to join in the Advent conspiracy is to look beyond our inner circle of friends and family and church to those who are on the outside. To, as I just mentioned, those Jesus showed particular concern for: the least, the last, and the lost. Conspiring against the king of consumerism and overconsumption and more means looking not inwardly, but looking outwardly from ourselves, beyond ourselves. We look beyond loving our own people to those who are on the outside. In some ways, this part of the Advent conspiracy is the easiest for us because this is our mission as a church. We have an outward-focused mission to invite people on a journey with Jesus. But on the other hand, sometimes we can become so busy this time of year that we forget to look beyond ourselves. We become kind of inward-focused at a time when Jesus most wants us to be outward-focused. So here's what that could look like for you. Consider, as you're out and about, an act of random kindness to the myriad of people that you will encounter who look overwhelmed. Just consider doing something for somebody you don't even know. Share Christmas cookies, not just with your friends and your family and your pastor, but share